What do you call a bought and paid for government that's run by corporate pods who get off on lying to your face and flaunting their crimes against the rest of us in front of TV cameras? What's the technical name for a government like that? Is it a kakistocracy? Is it a kleptocracy? Is it a shamocracy? What word am I looking for? Welcome to the very first episode of Mafiacracy Now here on Best Evidence. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Titus, and I have been away for a very long time. Nevertheless, I'm going to pick up exactly where I left off. The last two videos I made on this channel were two feature-length documentaries that showed two basic things. One, that the rule of law is dead in the United States. It died in a coup d'etat. And second, that coup d'etat occurred not only within the Justice Department, but with the active assistance of the Justice Department, which granted criminal immunity to a global banking cartel. The first documentary is called The Veneer of Justice in a Kingdom of Crime. The second is called All the Plenary's Men. They are both available on this channel. I was actually going to make a third documentary, make a trilogy, and it was going to be called The Rotten Seed of Mafiacracy. I had done all of the research, and I'd even done the title artwork, which I was going to animate in order to illustrate the two questions that the film was going to address. Here. So this seed here sprouts a vine that winds all around these letters, and it in turn sprouts a laurel wreath, Augustus Caesar-style headdress representing the mafiocracy. The two questions are, A, what is that seed exactly? And B, when did that vine get ripe enough to turn into a full-fledged mafiocracy courtesy of a coup d'etat? Because the banks, I'm telling you, did not simply snap their fingers in 2012 and get criminal immunity. Nor did they just click their heels in 2008 and get trillions of dollars in bailout money. Both of those things took a very long time to occur. They had to lay a lot of groundwork to do that. And the question is, what exactly did they do to overthrow the U.S. government? Now, there's a key concept sort of embedded in this that I need to explain here, get it out on the table, and it concerns sovereignty. I actually made this point at the end of All the Plenary's Men, but in all honesty, I didn't do it justice. I did a much better job explaining it in an interview about that film on the Kaiser Report, and I want to play you that clip. So let me get to that. Here.
I mean, this is a direct link. I mean, isn't it kind of like, you know, not to be inelegant, but peeing in the face of the victims?
It's way worse than that. It's way worse, because if you look at the power that the cartel banks now have, William Blackstone was the one who came along in 1765, and in the Commentaries of England, he said, the king can do no wrong. And by that, he doesn't mean, as a matter of fact, the king can do no wrong. He's simply saying, this is a statement of complete power of a monarch. It's plenary power of a monarch. And the banks now enjoy that power. They can do no wrong. Literally, they can do no wrong. They can commit crimes with total impunity, which gives them, it makes them legally more powerful than the government. So in other words, the sovereign in the U.S. is supposed to be we the people. First three words in the Constitution, right? It's not we the people. The sovereign authority in the U.S., the sovereign power of the U.S. is a criminal global banking cartel, period, full stop.
Okay. So that, in a nutshell, is what the rotten seed of mafiocracy was going to be about. However, there is not going to be a third documentary, for two very closely related reasons. Number one, it was going to be way too long. The research was so involved, it took me back 3 centuries farther than I thought when I went into this project. And number two, and more importantly, I suffered a massive heart attack last year. And at that point, the odds of me ever finishing The Rotten Seed of Mafiacracy vastly diminished. So at that point, I was inclined to quit, but I didn't. I just said, you know what, I'm just going to dial things back. So instead of getting The Rotten Seed of Mafiacracy, a 3-hour documentary 3 years from now, you are now getting Mafiacracy Now, a much more informal and casual vlog. and it's going to be periodic too. Episodic, I guess, is the right word. And so what that means practically is it suits me fine. I was getting tired of the objective narrator shtick anyway. But it means for you, the viewer, the fourth wall is coming down, and you're going to now get me warts and all. So, buckle up. And on that note, I need to take you on a trip with me to meet a guy who knows a lot more about financial crime and sovereignty than I ever will. So let's get this thing on, man.
Oh yeah. This is therapy for me. I can't afford a psychoanalyst or a psychiatrist, but I can afford a bike ride. It's perfect. I got a camera, I come out here to the Neuse River bike path, bike trail, and just rant. And you have a camera, and it prevents you from getting arrested because everybody's got to pretend that they don't care that you have a camera. It's perfect. You can see there, that river's pretty high. Oh man, quick shout out, I forgot to do this in studio, to Max Kaiser and Stacy Herbert for having me on their show. That was really nice. I don't know how they got a hold of that film, All the Planner's Men, but they did. Cheers, Max. You're the man, truly. Thank you. There's a few ways to figure out that criminal immunity is tantamount to sovereignty. In other words, that any entity who has criminal immunity is the real sovereign. The way that clicked with me is this: you can replicate any sovereign power you want if you have criminal immunity. So, for example, you don't need the constitutional authority to coin money and regulate the value thereof. You can simply counterfeit money and rig markets. And in fact, rigging markets is what they did. You just do those things, you commit those crimes, and then you plead immunity. And in fact, rigging markets, both the Forex market and the LIBOR market, interest rate market, were rigged, and immunity deals were made. And the parties, the banks, were immunized from prosecution, and the bankers. So these things are going on in real time. So you don't need the constitutional authority to do those things. You just do them and then plead immunity. Likewise, you don't need the legal ability to wage wars, raise standing armies, even enter treaties. You just do those things, and if you get prosecuted, you plead immunity. Same thing with passing laws. You don't need the legal ability to pass laws or to selectively enforce laws through the Department of Justice. You just do those things. You bribe congressmen, you bribe DOJ officials, and then you can pass whatever laws you want, and you can have whatever laws you want enforced. Isn't that right, Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer? You can go ahead and hit the subscribe button now. You too, Sessions. Oh, that's right. Vegetables don't have arms. That sucks. So you don't need the legal ability to do anything to be the sovereign. You just have to have criminal immunity. That's what Blackstone meant. The king can do no wrong. That's sovereign power. And that's what the banks have. You gotta remember, the Department of Justice is the only federal agency out there that can indict, prosecute, and incarcerate criminals. And that is where any country is weak, including the United States. And that, in fact, is where the coup d'etat took place in the United States. As soon as the DOJ immunized the banks from prosecution, which they admitted they did, the head of the criminal division, Lanny Brewer, flat out admitted that he wasn't even investigating the banks, much less prosecuting them. He let them commit whatever the crimes they want. Never minded the fact that they were clients of his law firm. But those banks are now the sovereign power. The way you assert immunity in the United States is You call a meeting in the Department of Justice, you get in a conference room, and you tell DOJ officials, you got a real nice country here. Be a shame if it met up with collateral consequences. That's what happened in the U.S. If you doubt me, watch The Veneer of Justice in a Kingdom of Crime. That went down. That's documented. Lanny Brewer let that happen in his conference room. Now, the question, of course, is I can't do that. You can't do that. How were the banks able to do that? What's up, Mr. Squirrel? How are the banks able to do that? And that's what this vlog in large part is going to be about. We're going to answer that question. The banks had to do a series of things. They had to clear a series of hurdles to get criminal immunity and to achieve sovereignty, but they're there now. They're the real sovereign power. All this other stuff you see, but Donald Trump and 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, everything that's happened since then is all kabuki theater. You shouldn't believe a word of it. It's all nonsense. It's designed to distract you from the fact that the banks control the U.S. The banks are the government now. And we're going to retrace that whole process because it was a long time coming. The thing about collateral consequences is that the DOJ just made it up. Yeah, no court ever ruled on that. Congress never passed a law. The DOJ simply made up collateral consequences for prosecutions of corporations and put it in a U.S. Attorney's manual and said you should consider collateral consequences of a corporate prosecution. Yeah, Eric Holder did that during the Clinton administration. Know what else? Collateral consequences is still in the U.S. Attorney's manual right now. It's been there since the 90s. So nothing's changed. The banks are still immune from prosecution. You know, you think they woke up one day and decided to give their power back? Gave up criminal immunity? What day was that, Opie? No, banks are still immune. The coup d'etat is in full effect. So what a coup d'etat means is that the rule of law has been replaced by criminals. That in this country we now have a mafiacracy running things. So the only thing we can do at this point is focus on reversing that. And the way to do that, the way to begin that process, is to look back at a period of history, the last time we the people threw off a bunch of criminals. And that, my friends, is the American Revolution. That's where we're gonna start. So now we gotta talk to my guy, the one guy who can connect all the dots together. Sovereignty, financial crimes, and revolution. There's just one thing. He's dead.